Welcome to episode 249 of Angela Watson's Truth for Teachers. I'm your host, Angela Watson, and I'm here to speak life, encouragement, and truth into the minds and hearts of educators and get you energized for the week ahead. Today, I'm talking about holistic wealth and what it means to enjoy where we're at instead of constantly striving for more. Visit truthforteachers.com to get an easy-to-read, easy-to-share version of this podcast episode. Competing priorities can make it difficult to find time for socio-emotional learning. Word Workouts, available at wordworkouts.org, is a free pre-K-12 lesson library that helps students reflect on the most common emotions they feel every day, like worry, confidence, and calm. Each lesson combines a physical movement video with a set of reflection prompts that are all related to a single emotion and can be done in as little as 10 minutes. You can use them for brain breaks or during advisory periods. To start using this 100% free resource with your students, visit wordworkouts.org. That's wordworkouts.org. If your administrators are feeling helpless right now to do anything about teacher burnout this year, let them know about the 40-hour leadership program. It's a new offshoot of my 40-hour teacher workweek program that is designed to create change at the school level, helping everyone in the building to stay focused on what really makes a difference for kids and streamline or eliminate the rest. 40-hour leadership is an entirely self-paced program for administrators that only requires an upfront and time investment of around 10 hours to reimagine systems and simplify processes to save everyone in your building time and energy every single day. We can work with your school to acquire grant funding and professional development money to cover the cost via purchase order, and we offer additional consulting packages for personalized coaching and support. Go to 40htw.com to learn more about the 40-hour leadership program and our other 40-hour resources designed to help educators find a sustainable way of doing a great job for kids. That's 40htw.com. You'll see our 6-week Fast Track program for teachers, which we've recently reopened to new members as well, and our 40-hour instructional coaching program, all at 40htw.com. 40htw.com. One quick announcement before we dive in here. If you didn't see a new podcast episode last Sunday and you're feeling like maybe you missed something, here's a recap on the new publication schedule for Truth for Teachers. We are trying out a 4 weeks on, 1 week off format during this season of the podcast. That allows our team to catch a breath in between cranking out these weekly episodes and also allows you as the listener to have a catch-up week. If there's any episodes that you missed or you were just too busy to listen to, you have time now. So no worries if you refresh your podcast app and you don't see a new episode every single time. We're doing 4 eps in a row and then 1 week off. If you still want something from me every Sunday, go to truthforteachers.com and you can sign up for my weekly Sunday night email. It's just a short message designed to keep you informed and inspired for the week ahead. And it's something completely independent from the podcast. I don't publish the content of those emails anywhere else. It's just a message from me to you, basically. So you can sign up right in the header for those weekly emails at truthforteachers.com. So let's get into today's topic. This is something that I've been thinking about and talking about for quite a while. It's something that my good friend Jennifer Gonzalez from Cult of Pedagogy, something that she and I have discussed a lot in our Voxer conversations. Voxer is sort of like WhatsApp. That's the way that we communicate with each other. And it's something that she termed holistic wealth. If you are in the entrepreneurial world at all, or an online business, or you have some sort of side hustle, you are probably aware of how much pressure is on entrepreneurs to be scaling, growing, increasing in profits every single year. It is exhausting. And frankly, after the pandemic, it seems really silly and problematic in a lot of different ways. So Jen and I have been talking about how we want to value other things in our lives besides just our work and things that bring income into the home. In the past, I found myself in a place where I judge my days as being well spent if I got the work done that I wanted to get done. And if I don't, then I feel slightly panicky or behind or like I wasted time. And that's not a normal state for me because I have actively worked to counter that feeling over the years. But I still have the programming from our culture, which values work and making money above all else. It's actually a bit dangerous to do the thing that you love for a living, because getting paid to do something causes you to compromise on some of the things that you love about that work. You end up having to do things you don't really want to do, and sometimes the thing that you love can become the thing you hate when you try to monetize it. And one of the toughest parts for me is that I feel like I should be scaling and growing every single year. And I'm not. The last couple of years, my income has been down from what it was before. But holistic wealth is not just about being wealthy in terms of money, but in terms of satisfaction with your life and how your time is spent. And in that sense, I am richer than I've ever been. I enjoy my life more now than ever before. And I'm really satisfied with how I spend my time. I am working less and enjoying life more. And that's a worthwhile trade-off for me. And obviously, there is a level of privilege that comes with that. You do need to be making a certain amount of money before you can say, okay, now I'm going to try to value some other things with my time. So I do want to acknowledge that as well, that it's not to say that money doesn't matter. And that's particularly true when you're trying to figure out, how am I going to pay my bills? The price of everything is going up. It can be a little crazy. I'm simply suggesting that valuing things beyond just money is important. Personally, I want to really try to resist the pressure to keep moving the goalposts on myself, because that's what it feels like I'm doing a lot of times. If I accomplish X goal and I achieve Y income, the expectation is that the following year I will double those goals and double the income, or do a 20% increase, or whatever it is. Different people have different standards for what they think should be happening in a business, but I find the whole thing really toxic and unsustainable. To me, this is just a function of living in late stage capitalism, this constant push to grow and improve and compete. It's not only draining, but after a certain point, it becomes impossible unless you do things that are not ethical. What that point is, I'm not really sure. Billionaires, I'm just not a fan of billionaires. Don't think that billionaires should exist. I don't think you can become a billionaire by working hard. I think you can only become a billionaire by exploiting other people. Obviously, I'm nowhere near the billionaire mark, but I do know that at a certain point, the only way to keep accumulating wealth is by underpaying, having other people do the work for you and underpaying them. So I'm just sort of cautiously examining the whole system right now. And I'm sharing it with you because I think there's an interesting parallel that you can probably relate to as a teacher, because the goalposts are always being moved on educators and students as well. Think about it. If you could ever get 95% of your students to meet grade level standards, what do you think would actually happen? Do you think that you would be congratulated and given a raise? Do you think you'd be allowed to just keep doing what's working for the rest of your career? That people would say, yes, 95% at grade level. This is like amazing, great. Keep doing what you're doing. Of course not. The powers that be will decide, oh, well, the standards must be too easy. If 95% of kids can meet those standards, we need to move the goalposts. We need to raise the standards. We're not asking enough. And if you have a problem with that, then you must not care about kids. Like, you must just have really low standards and not want the best for students. Like, why can't we have 100% of all kids doing all the things? Let's just keep asking more of them. And that's what keeps happening, right? Every year, there's more and more that we're asking teachers and kids to do. I had a conversation with my dad over Christmas. And he reminded me that when he was growing up in the 1950s, school was not mandatory for kids until first grade. He was 7 years old when he had his first school experience. My dad did not know his letters or his numbers until he was 7 years old and starting first grade. He was not even expected to know those things on the first day of school. My father, just one generation before me, I'm Gen X, he is a boomer. He stayed home and played until the age of 7. And he learned the alphabet in first grade. And that was perfectly acceptable and normal. No one thought that his mom wasn't doing what she was supposed to do. And why aren't his parents taking him to all of these different activities? And he should be getting ahead. And how's he ever going to get into college? He just played. He just played until he went to first grade. First graders now are expected to be reading chapter books. Even kindergartners are expected to know at least some numbers and letters by the age of 5. When I taught pre-K, we were required to introduce numbers and letters to 3-year-olds. So Just think about that for a minute. I'm not saying that schools didn't need to change and evolve. Clearly, more is expected from humans in 2022 than in the 1950s. It's a more complex world. You need more advanced skills to be successful in it. I'll give you that. But child development hasn't changed that much in the last few decades. My dad was able to be successful in first grade because the expectation was that he just learn the alphabet and read the Dick and Jane books. The problem is that because he and others in his class were successful with it, some folks somewhere decided they should be doing something more advanced and more advanced and more advanced until you get to the point that we're at now, which is that we're asking children to do things that are developmentally inappropriate and simply not possible yet for many kids. There's a very big difference between saying something is impossible for a child and saying they're not there yet. It's not something they can do yet. I don't think you're really supposed to talk about that as an educator because it makes it sound like you have low expectations. And, low expectations are not a good thing. I'm not a stand for low expectations. But, when I was teaching third grade, there were many skills and concepts that I felt like they were just not going to be able to do really well until they were older and their brains were more developed. Most of them were just not able to read the most complex texts that I was required to put in front of them. For example, one year there was a fifth grade level text in our end of year standardized test, despite them only being in third grade. And this test was a requisite for promotion to the next grade level. I had kids literally crying during that test because they could not understand what they were reading. And the questions they were being asked were so difficult, I wasn't even sure what the answers were without reading the text through several times. This is goalpost moving, my friends. This is saying if we can get some kids to be successful some of the time at this particular standard, then we're not being demanding enough. This is not rigorous enough. If one kid in one school can do it, then we need to make all the kids do it at the exact same time in their development. That's toxic. I reject that entire way of doing school. The sense of competition, of needing to be the best, constantly improving, this is inherent in capitalism as well as in white supremacy culture. And that's exactly what we're seeing play out in schools. Now, if you haven't heard that phrase before, white supremacy culture, you're not sure what I mean by that, go to truthforteachers.com. One of our writers, Jennifer Brinkmeyer, just published a post about how to identify these kinds of cultural expectations in your classroom. It's called Disrupt White Supremacy Culture in the Classroom with these 4 practices. And she talks about the urgency, the ever-increasing standards, the individualistic nature of how we do school. All of this is so much deeper than just what we're seeing on the surface. And you know me, I'm always interested in digging around to find out, where did these expectations come from? How did we get to be like this? What cultural belief systems have we been sort of indoctrinated into, brainwashed into without knowing, and we just haven't questioned them yet? And what we're seeing in schools is that it's not enough to be good. You have to be constantly getting better in every area at a significant rate. And if you master something and you're at a level of expertise where there's not much left work to do, there's not much improvement left, then you as both a student and as a teacher now need a new goal to work toward, right? And this is true for students as well as for teachers. Like, I know a lot of teachers their administrators purposely underrate them on their evaluations because they need to be able to show growth over time. That's madness. If you're good at something, you're good at something. Maybe we don't have to rush on and give people a brand new goal to work toward. Maybe we can just say, you're really rocking it. That's great. Like, imagine that kind of world. Instead, we always have someone upping the ante and demanding more. So what I'd like to offer is these questions for you to consider. When do we get to enjoy what we've accomplished? When do we get to celebrate how far we've come? When do we get to enjoy the skills we've already built and utilize the knowledge and the wisdom we've already acquired? When do we get to take a moment to breathe, to look back on the past 2 years of this pandemic and say, I'm still here, and that matters? The constant rushing on to the next goal and pushing to be better and faster and do more in less time and be the smartest and make the most money, it's frankly exhausting. And that pressure permeates every aspect of society. I started off this episode talking about how it impacts me and my business and the pressure that I feel to always be growing and scaling. It impacts education, as I've just shared. It impacts every other industry that you can think of. That's why we're seeing so much upheaval right now in society. People are tired of being pushed to the brink to maximize profits and achievement and growth. And that's why it's so important for us to resist this. And I want to share one simple way that you can begin doing that. It's this idea of holistic wealth that I talked about at the beginning. And I'll extend that here into holistic well-being. I'm using that term to refer to well-being as something in which the things that you produce and accomplish are simply one part of your life. And that part is no more valuable than the parts of your life that don't generate income or result in a specific product or outcome. Let me explain. I created a list of things that make me feel balanced. And I try to hit all the things on that list at least once a week. It's a reasonable list. It is not an ambitious list. It includes things like yoga, and that could be just 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Doesn't have to be a whole, go to a class and do a whole hour-long thing at the studio. It could just be 10, 15 minutes on YouTube. Going for a walk is on that list. Creating art, reading a book. Let me tell you about that last one. I find reading a physical book in the daytime to be a great luxury. I often read on Kindle before I go to sleep, but I rarely get past one page before I am knocked out cold. So not a lot of reading happens at night. The luxury for me is reading a stimulating or enjoyable book in broad daylight. I could be folding laundry. I could be emptying my email inbox. I could be doing all of these other little tasks that are nagging me in the back of my mind. And instead, I choose to sit down in the rocking chair and just read a book. Not for a long period of time. Frankly, I don't have a long attention span anymore for things that aren't on the internet. It's a little scary. Reading a book for an extended period of time is not a skill I have anymore. I'm just talking about 10 or 15 minutes. And the best is when I put on a jazz playlist on Spotify, I light a candle, have a cup of tea, and I just read a book. That feels like living to me. It feels so indulgent and relaxing and luxurious. I just love it. That 10 to 15 minutes of reading a book makes me feel like I'm living my best life. It's not the only thing that makes me feel like that, but it's on that holistic wealth and well-being list because it's very simple and quick. And if I'm intentional, I can do it pretty often. It's really not hard to find 10 to 15 minutes to scroll through social media or watch TikTok. But I feel so much more satisfied when I close that book after 10 minutes. Like I just took a beautiful moment in my day to do something I love. So I keep a book or two on my coffee table as a reminder to grab it. One is about the history of the Pocono Mountains. One is about moss because I love moss gardening. So 2 hardcover books on the coffee table, and I just grab one and I sit and I read. That is holistic wealth and well-being to me. Getting to read a book during my waking hours when I feel like I should theoretically be, quote, getting things done, that's an experience that makes me feel rich in so many ways that matter apart from money. I'm not just rushing from one event to the next or checking off mundane tasks on a list which bring me no real satisfaction. No one wants to end the whole day feeling like that's all they did. This is choosing to do something that makes my life feel rich and fulfilling. And that's something that I invite you to practice as well. Make a list of a handful of things that if you were to do them each week this month, you would look back at the end of the month and think, there was a lot of hard work, there was a lot of caregiving, there was a lot of tedium, but I also had some moments of pure enjoyment and indulgence. So for you, that could be physical movement, could be a sport, could be a hobby, could be doing a fun family activity. Just list out some things that when you're able to find time for them in the week, you feel really happy and fulfilled. These are the kinds of things that make you feel like your life is more than just working. It's more than just school. These are the kinds of things, that's what you want to put on this list, the things that help you look back on the week and think, yes, I worked a lot, but I also had these wonderful moments of drawing, taking a dance break, having a glass of wine while cooking dinner, and listening to my favorite album. Whatever it is that makes you feel like you have holistic well-being, holistic wealth, holistic health, that you are rich in a way that goes beyond money. That's the things you want to put on this list. And the secret about it that has made it so powerful for me is that I actively work to value all the things on that list equally. So I block off time for work on that list because I feel good when I get work done. Like you, I enjoy my work. I enjoy the field I'm in. I feel like I'm making a difference. And I like feeling prepared. You might not particularly enjoy writing lesson plans, but that could be included under holistic well-being because it would feel crappy to show up to your job completely unprepared with no idea of what you're going to teach. Getting those plans done is an important part of feeling like you're in balance and you're living a good life. So I do block off time for work in my holistic well-being goals. I don't list out specific tasks. So like you wouldn't need to write grade papers or plan lessons or anything like that. Just block off sessions. So maybe 2 hours twice a week that you get things done at home or whatever you need to do to feel like you're balanced. Maybe you've gotten to a point where you don't bring any work home at all. That is great. Obviously, that's a fantastic goal, but not realistic for everyone. And if you're working too much, see if you can factor this into your holistic wealth and well-being. You feel better when you're on top of your job, so you can put some of those work slots on your list. But back to my main point here is that those work blocks are on the list of things to do that are not work-related or productive, which means they have equal weight. That's been the game changer for me because I used to have a list of the things that I felt like I had to do. And then once those were done, then I could do the things that I wanted to do. And as you can imagine, because the list of things to get done is never ending, there was not a lot of time left for things I wanted to do. Now, because I have this holistic wealth checklist in addition to my to-do list, I feel like the things that make me feel like I have a rich and satisfying life are all equally important. So yesterday, for example, I didn't get a lot of work done. However, I checked off several other things on my holistic wealth list. I went for a walk, I read for a couple of minutes, and I watched an old black and white movie on Turner Classic Movies on their app. It's the only screen-related thing on my holistic wealth checklist because I find those old black and white movies so relaxing, I almost always fall asleep in them. Somehow they just totally downregulate my nervous system. I think it's like the fact there's not a lot of like action scenes and camera cutting and like it's a lot of just dialogue and quiet. It's just feels really good to watch. So I watched a movie, went for a walk, and I read for a couple of minutes. That's 3 things that I did that I know I will look back on the end of the week and be glad that I did them. They felt great. They were good for my mind and my body and my soul. They allowed me to feel like I'm actually a human being, not a human doing. I'm actually living my life. I'm actually enjoying it. I'm not just trying to fit in everything around work. Those things allowed me to feel like I'm making intentional choices about how I use my time instead of just doing the easiest thing. The easiest thing when you have a few minutes of free time is to sit or lay down on the couch and scroll through your phone or watch TV. And as wonderful and relaxing and fun as that can be, we all know that too much of that makes you feel like you're sort of wasting your time and wasting your life. I've had weeks when I felt like all I did was work and stare at a screen. I felt like I didn't do anything that made me feel alive. I did my work and then I watched TV, and I did my work and I looked at my phone, and I did my work and I watched more TV. That didn't make me feel like I was really having anything more than an existence. It didn't feel like thriving. But this week, because I already did 3 things on my holistic wealth list, I know I'm going to look back on this week and feel like I used my time well. Today, I'm carving out time to make art. I've been experimenting with alcohol inks a lot over the last couple of months, and it feels so good just to take 20 or 30 minutes and play around with some different techniques and see what small, beautiful thing I can create. The time that I spend making art is valuable to me, even though it is not valuable to anyone else. And that is a real game changer, particularly for women in this culture where we feel like we need to be constantly doing things for other people, putting their needs before our own, serving them, caring for them, making sure everyone is taken care of before we can have a moment to ourselves. My art it's a hobby that I have not monetized. I don't make any money from it. I do not share it on social media. No one else sees it. So I'm not doing it for money or accolades to impress other people, to help other people, to, inspire other people to do what I'm doing. Often I make bad art that no one ever sees. But that time spent in a creative space, just playing around, experimenting, see what can come out of whatever it is that I'm trying that day. that time is just as valuable to me as the time spent cooking a meal or earning a living or anything else in my day when I look at it from the perspective of holistic wealth and well-being, not just traditional wealth, but holistic wealth. So this is a mental shift away from trying to maximize every moment and getting as much done as possible in a day, and instead being intentional with where my time is going and making sure I'm doing things that make my life feel rich and worthwhile. Since the pandemic started, I spent more time at home. Like a lot of people, I've continued spending more time at home, even when things started reopening for various reasons. And that's meant that I've needed to find other things to do at home that I can do, maybe stuff that I didn't make as much time for before because I was traveling more and being out with people and just had a busier schedule. I've never been one who really liked to have a packed schedule, but certainly before COVID, I had more things going on. So since I've been at home more, I have been cultivating hobbies more. It used to be that work was my hobby. In my free time, I would blog and tweet and spend time in Facebook groups and connect with other educators. I didn't really have any hobbies apart from things related to teaching. But I got really burned out on that. And I got burned out on being online and on a device, just in general. So I really worked to develop more enjoyable ways to spend my free time. When I'm working, it's with a specific purpose and clear goal in mind. And when I've gotten that goal done, I really try to get offline and enjoy doing other things in my life. So I didn't work as much as I probably should have yesterday. I really try to avoid that word should. I didn't work as much as I could have yesterday. I did need to catch up on some things. But the work now for me is no more important than watching that movie or going for that walk. Because at the end of the day, those other things were so enjoyable and relaxing that I knew I'd be happy if I did them. And those things mattered just as much to my life satisfaction as getting my stuff done. And now today, I am looking back. I'm very happy with that choice. Because I got to do a couple enjoyable things yesterday, I woke up this morning feeling so much more focused and energized. I've been able to catch up on what I needed done, the stuff that I had thought about doing yesterday and didn't do. I was able to get it done this morning and today's tasks, including this podcast episode, because I was able to take that break and spend some time doing other things I enjoyed instead of just constantly grinding, hustling, doing more. And that's my wish for you, that you would be able to identify some things that add a richness and fullness and satisfaction to your life and see if you can incorporate more of those things with intentionality. I set up my little checklist in the Notes app on my phone, so I can literally check things off as I go throughout the week and then restart the list the following week. This allows me to see all of the awesome ways I've used my time, doing things that are good for my mind and body and soul. So if I'm making art, I actually get to check that off a list. So this is an addition to my weekly to-do list. If you're a 40-hour Teacher Workweek member, you know how much I love my to-do lists, which keep me on track with work and other obligations and helps me make sure I'm getting things done in a timely manner. This is just a separate note in the Notes app, and I use it to make sure I'm incorporating other things that I care about without adding them to my regular to-do list, which is stuff that absolutely needs to get done. This is about saying, I'm tempted to just lay on the couch and scroll through Instagram. What else could I do instead that will make this week feel so much better? And then I remember, if I pull out my little watercolor set and pen and spend 15 minutes making a landscape, it will make me so much happier. I will feel so much better. And some days, to be truly honest, just laying on the couch and zoning out is going to be the better choice because it's all you've got to give. But if we want to make our lives about more than just working and getting through the day, we have to be intentional about holistic wealth. Because otherwise, what is it all for? You're working and you're trading so much of your time and energy and mental bandwidth in order to make money from your job. And it's draining. Even though you love your job, the reason that you continue doing it, in part, is because you're getting paid to do that and you need money in order to live and enjoy your life. You're trading your time for that money. But what is financial security if you're miserable? What happens if you worked your whole life assuming that later you'll get to enjoy your time, and then that later doesn't come in quite the way you thought it was going to? This is not a call to quit your job or to leave teaching, although that will be the right choice for some people. This is about working and enjoying life. About saying, I'm only contracted to be in the school building till 3 or 4. I'm leaving at that time. And then when I go to bed at 10, I will have had 8 hours after school in which I was not working. I was not thinking about work. I was attending to other aspects of my life before I go to sleep. That's kind of amazing, right? 8 hours for work, 8 hours for everything else, 8 hours for sleep. You can do that in a 24-hour cycle. What if we could work and enjoy life? What if we can resist the pressure to always be growing, scaling, doing more, setting new goals, improving ourselves, pushing kids further, doing more, being better, and instead say, I'm going to prioritize doing something in my life that generates no money. It has no measurable outcome. I have no set goal for it. It doesn't actually accomplish anything other than the fact that I like it. We can say, I do this because it makes me feel good. It's fun for me. Or I just feel better after I've done it. And this is a countercultural attitude. It is a way to resist extreme capitalism. Now, know that when I'm talking about capitalism, I'm not really thinking about it in a political sense, as in capitalism versus socialism. I'm just talking about how our culture and society operates in general, and recognizing the toll that late stage capitalism, which is what we're in now, our country's been doing this for a very, very long time, to the point where we're seeing it pushed to the extreme. What we're experiencing now takes a toll on the human body and mind and soul. Certainly, to be clear, I am not against things like a free market. I'm an entrepreneur. I own my own business. I'm simply recognizing that the way capitalism has been taken to such an extreme end that every aspect of our society is being pushed to the limit to produce as much as possible, as cheaply as possible, as fast as possible, without regard to the impact on the environment or people or mental or physical health and well-being of the people working. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I want to push back against. And I always talk about a more human-centered way of education in which we care about the whole child and the whole educator. And this really ties into that. If all we care about is making money or raising standards or meeting objectives, then we have lost the sense of our humanity. We've lost that sense of care for the well-being of ourselves and others and the planet. There's lots of ways to return to that sense of care for well-being. And I hope that this offering of the Holistic Wealth Weekly Checklist is something that gets you thinking about a process that could work for you. And maybe not. Maybe you hate the idea of a checklist, but try just writing some things down that help you feel balanced. Just write it down. You don't have to make a checklist if you don't like that idea. And go back and look at that list from time to time. When you're feeling out of balance and you feel like you're just working all the time and you're not getting to do anything you really enjoy, go back and take a look at that list. It can be very powerful to write or type it out and see right there in black and white what's missing for you. Because you know what really surprised me? What I need in order to feel balanced is not nearly as time intensive as I had initially assumed. You might think that you need an entire day or 2 or 3 every single week just to do absolutely nothing in order to recuperate. But you may find that if you give yourself smaller pockets of time to do things that are restorative throughout the week, that actually just a couple hours on a Sunday afternoon could be enough. Now, sometimes we're so overtired and overworked that we do need a longer stretch of time to recuperate. But when we have more balanced days more often, the recovery time is shorter. And many of the things that we really enjoy don't actually take that much time. If friendships are super important to you, going out for coffee with a coworker once a week for an hour is really not that big of a time commitment. You could even incorporate that friend into something you're already doing. I used to go grocery shopping with a coworker or friend who had young children. She had very little free time, couldn't really go hang out. So we'd go to the grocery store together. We'd both buy groceries, and then we would go to her house and I'd hang out while we prepped veggies and stuff for the week. I just wanted time with her. We didn't have to be out doing something super fun and exciting. Just doing everyday life together made those tasks more enjoyable. So for someone feeling socially isolated or alone, that 1 hour can be so much more beneficial than just going home to get things done around the house or running errands. See if you can figure out another way for the mundane stuff to get handled, or just drop the ball. Go out for coffee. Forget the rest of the stuff on your to-do list. If the coffee is essential to your sanity, go meet your friend. Notice how you feel afterward. And then the next time you feel isolated, don't go home. Pop into your coworker's room and say, "Hey, can we go talk for half an hour? Will you go for a walk with me around the neighborhood by the school before we leave today so that we can talk and I can get some fresh air and exercise?" Look for those little moments like that which create memories and add a richness and fullness to your life. These things matter just as much as pushing kids to the next reading percentile or whatever other goal you feel like you need to be meeting. Craft a life for yourself that feels worth living and enjoying now, rather than working and producing and doing all the time. Think of it as just a little experiment and let me know how it goes. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be worth it.